All right, so today we're diving into something a little different, the Female Orgasm Black Book.
Ooh, getting right into it.
Yeah, and this is by Lee Jenkins. You can find it at femaleorgasmblackbook.com.
Okay.
And we're really going to try to distill like the most important insights from this
Right.
for folks who are, want to have a better, more fulfilling sexual relationship. And
Yeah, and it's interesting because, we often have this idea about female orgasm, like it's this like straightforward thing.
right.
But Jenkins is saying like, no, there are these keys, and I'm quoting him here, keys needed to open the doors for a woman's sexual fulfillment.
Okay, so we're going to find these keys.
We're gonna find the keys.
All right, I'm intrigued already.
Yeah.
So how does he lay this out? Like, what's the structure of this deep dive that we're going on?
Well, he's got kind of a two-part approach, right? So it's like there's the strategy part,
Okay.
which is like the mindset you got to have and the framework. And then there's the tactics, which is like the actual techniques.
Oh, so like the strategy versus the tactics.
Strategy versus tactics, like a battle plan for...
Gotcha. Okay, so let's start with strategy then.
Yeah, let's start with strategy.
Mindset is where he begins, and that really resonated with me. He talks about the wrong mindset. This idea of just focusing on like giving an orgasm.
Yeah.
Why is that such a common pitfall? What's the problem with that approach?
Well, I think it's, you get caught up in like performance anxiety,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like if the only goal is to make her come, then it puts pressure on everybody.
Yeah.
And he uses this analogy of like choking up in sports.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're so focused on the outcome that you can't actually like, perform naturally.
Right.
And I think that's so true with this kind of thing. Like if you're just thinking about like, I got to make her come, you're not actually like
And on
practicing.
moment, yeah.
You're not in the moment. You're not enjoying it.
Right. And also like it kind of turns it into this task-oriented thing.
Oh.
It's not about pleasure anymore. It's about like achieving this goal.
Exactly.
So what's the right mindset then? What's the opposite of that?
Well, he's saying like instead of focusing on the orgasm, focus on her pleasure.
Right.
Like make sure she's enjoying the whole experience and the orgasm will kind of happen naturally.
So it's like taking the pressure off that end goal and
Yeah.
focusing on just making sure she's enjoying every step of the way.
Exactly. It's like a byproduct almost,
Okay.
and it makes it more mutual too, because then it's not just about you giving her something. It's about both of you enjoying it together.
I like that. It's very collaborative.
Yeah.
So mindset checked. He also talks about communication, which seems like a no-brainer, but
You would think, right?
why does he single that out?
Well, I think it's because everybody's different.
Right.
What one woman likes, another woman might hate. And if you don't communicate, you're never going to know.
So it's about figuring out those individual preferences.
Exactly. And he talks about both verbal communication, like actually talking about it, and nonverbal communication, like, paying attention to her body language.
Like little cues.
Little cues, like, is she squeezing your hand? Is she arching her back? Things like that.
Right. And even if she's not comfortable, like verbalizing everything, those nonverbal cues can give you so much information.
Absolutely. It's like a whole language.
Yeah. Okay, so communication key. Another thing he brings up is escalation.
Okay.
What's the idea behind that?
Well, men and women are different biologically.
Right.
Like men can get aroused really quickly and reach orgasm quickly, but for women, it's often a more gradual process.
Okay.
So he's saying you gotta like escalate the intensity slowly.
Gotcha.
Like don't just jump right into the most intense stimulation.
So it's more like a dimmer switch than an on and off switch.
Exactly. You gotta let her arousal build over time.
And that leads into this concept of anticipation and tension.
Yeah.
Which sounds kind of hot.
Yeah, it's all about teasing and building up the excitement.
Oh, so like what kind of things is he talking about?
Well, he gives examples like, caressing her inner thighs, her buttocks, her hips before you actually touch her vagina.
Oh, I see. So it's like focusing on the areas around the genitals before you actually get to the main event.
Exactly. And he says it's important for the man to have self-control here.
Right. Like don't just rush to your own gratification.
Yeah, be present with her experience and let that anticipation build.
Makes sense. Then he talks about relaxation, which feels connected to that mindset piece we talked about earlier.
Yeah, totally. Because if she's not relaxed, she's not going to be able to fully let go and enjoy it.
So what are some of the things that can get in the way of relaxation?
Well, he talks about like stress from work anxieties, about body image, even like the pressure of trying to have an orgasm.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's like trying too hard.
Yeah. And he says it's the man's role to help her relax.
Okay, how so?
Like through words touch, just creating a safe and comfortable environment.
So like making her feel secure and supported?
Exactly.
Okay, then there's this really interesting one. Give before you receive.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one.
He's got like 3 main reasons for why this is so important.
Right.
What are they?
Well, first of all, he's saying it shows that you're in control of your own desires.
Okay.
Like you're prioritizing her pleasure over your own immediate gratification.
That's a good point.
And secondly, it actually like prepares her physically and mentally for orgasm during intercourse.
Oh, interesting.
And third, and maybe most importantly, he says that a woman who's already had an orgasm is way more likely to reciprocate.
Oh, and not just reciprocate, but reciprocate like enthusiastically.
Exactly, like with more passion.
So basically, if you take care of her, she's going to take care of you.
Yeah, that's the idea. And he even says there's like a noticeable difference in the quality of her reciprocation.
Wow. He doesn't hold back, does he?
Nope.
Okay, so give before you receive. That's a pretty clear directive. I also notice he's got a section called Tips for the Woman,
Oh.
which is interesting because up until now, it's all been about like what the man can do.
Yeah, but I think it's important to remember that it's a two-way street.
A woman has a role to play too.
So what are some of the things he's advising women to do?
Well, he talks about like letting go of inhibitions, being vocal about what she likes, making sure she's comfortable, hygiene, things like that.
Okay, so it's about taking ownership of her own pleasure and not being afraid to communicate her needs.
Exactly. It's a partnership.
And finally, in the strategy section, he brings up the oxytocin factor.
Ah, yes, the cuddle hormone.
Yeah, we hear a lot about oxytocin when it comes to intimacy, but what's its specific role in female orgasm?
Well, Jenkins is saying it's not just about the cuddling, it actually plays a role in the intensity of the orgasm itself.
Oh, wow.
Like the muscle contractions, and it also contributes to those feelings of pleasure and bonding afterwards.
So it's like this powerful hormone that enhances both the physical and the emotional experience.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the strategy piece covered. Mindset, communication, escalation, relaxation. Give before you receive tips for the woman, oxytocin.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, but it's like the foundation, right?
The groundwork.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now let's get into the actual techniques, the tactics.
Yeah.
He starts with female sexual anatomy and erogenous zones, which makes sense.
Absolutely, you got to know the territory.
Right. So let's start with the external anatomy, the vulva. He focuses a lot on the clitoris.
The star of the show.
Right. So tell me about the clitoris. Like, what are the key things he's highlighting?
Well, he describes it as like a mini penis.
Okay.
It's got the glands, the shaft, the hood.
It's also all the same parts.
Yeah, but its main function is pleasure.
Okay.
And it's super sensitive, like over 8,000 nerve endings.
Wow. 8,000. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's more than any other part of the body.
So clearly it's designed for pleasure.
Absolutely. And he also points out that most of the clitoris is actually internal.
Really?
Yeah, there's this part called the crura that extends inwards, and it's connected to the urethra and the G-spot.
So stimulating the G-spot is actually stimulating part of the clitoris too.
Exactly.
It's all connected. Wow. Okay, so the clitoris is a major player, but he also mentions other external erogenous zones.
Yeah, he talks about the mons pubis, the inner and outer lips, the fourchette, the perineum, which is that area between the vagina and the anus, sometimes called the taint,
The taint.
and even the anus itself. But he stresses hygiene if you're going there.
Of course, safety first. Then he moves on to the internal anatomy, starting with the vagina.
Right.
And he makes a really interesting point about sensitivity being concentrated in the lower third.
Yeah, that's important because a lot of people worry about penis size.
Right.
But he's saying that even if a guy has a shorter penis, he can still give a woman a lot of pleasure because the deeper part of the vagina isn't as sensitive.
Oh, that's good to know. He also mentions the cervix.
Yeah, which can be sensitive to pressure during deep thrusting.
So something to be aware of. And then there's the G-spot, which can be a bit of a mystery.
The elusive G-spot.
Right. So where is it and how do you find it?
Well, he says it's about 1.5 to 2 inches up the front wall of the vagina.
Okay.
And he recommends the come hither technique.
Come in.
Yeah, you insert your finger curve it upwards behind the pubic bone and make a beckoning motion with your fingertip.
Oh, I see. And what does it feel like?
He says it's kind of spongy, like the size of a nickel or a quarter, and it swells up when she's aroused.
Okay, so it gets bigger.
Yeah. And he's really adamant about the G-spot's potential. Like he says less than 1% of men know how to properly stimulate it.
Wow. So there's definitely a technique to it.
Yeah, and he claims it can lead to super intense orgasms, multiple orgasms, even female ejaculation.
Okay, we'll get into that in a bit. He also talks about the urethral sponge.
Right, sometimes called Skene's glands.
Skene's glands, okay.
And these are located near the G-spot, and they're involved in female ejaculation.
Okay, so that's where the fluid comes from.
Yeah, it's not pee, though.
Right, it's a different fluid.
Yeah, and some people call it the female prostate.
Female prostate, all right. And he even touches on the A-spot.
Yeah, which is deeper inside the vagina near the cervix.
Okay, and how do you stimulate that one?
He says through deep penetration, like in rear entry positions or certain frontal positions.
So it's all about angle.
Exactly. And then, of course, there are all those other erogenous zones all over the body.
Oh, yeah, he's a whole list.
The neck, the ears, the lips, the scalp, the breasts.
He says some women can actually orgasm from breast stimulation alone.
Yeah, pretty amazing. And then there's the buttocks, the feet, the small of the back behind the knees, the collarbones, the shoulders, even that line from the belly button down to the clitoris.
Wow, so basically the whole body is a potential pleasure zone.
Exactly. It's all about exploration.
Okay, so we've got the anatomy down. Now he moves on to what he calls the Female Orgasm Blueprint, which is his 4-phase, 5-stage battle plan.
Yeah, quite a name.
It is.
Yeah.
So tell me about this blueprint.
Well, it's based on this existing model called the circular model of female sexual response,
Okay.
which was developed by Whipple and Brash McGreer.
Got it.
But Jenkins felt like it was missing the practical instructions.
So he's adding the how-to element.
Exactly. He's making it actionable.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So what are the 4 phases?
Okay, so phase 1 is seduction, and the corresponding stage is desire.
All right, so setting the mood.
Yeah. And he's saying this starts outside the bedroom,
Really?
like with suggestive cuddling or erotic notes and kinky emails, things like that.
Oh, so it's about building anticipation throughout the day.
Exactly. Keep that sexual energy flowing even when you're not together.
I like it. Then we move on to phase 2, sensations.
Right. And this has 2 stages, excitement and plateau.
Okay, so excitement first, what happens there?
Well, it's about getting her relaxed, aroused, building that anticipation.
Gotcha. And he talks about massage techniques here.
Yeah, and labial massage specifically.
Okay, we'll get to those in a bit. And physically, what's happening to her body during this stage?
Well, her heart rate and breathing increase. Her nipples get erect. Her vagina starts to lubricate. The clitoris gets bigger.
Okay, so her body's getting ready.
Exactly. And then we move into the plateau stage where the direct genital stimulation begins.
Okay, and how does that differ from the excitement stage?
Well, the intensity starts to increase gradually.
Gotcha, so it's a buildup.
Yeah, and her body responds with even more intense physical changes.
Like what?
Like her heart rate and breathing continue to increase, her breasts might swell, there's more lubrication, and the clitoris might even retract a little.
Okay, so she's getting closer.
Yeah, and then we hit phase 3, surrender.
Which is all about the orgasm.
Right, and he includes the concept of a multiple orgasm cycle here.
Oh, interesting. Because we often hear that women can have multiple orgasms, but it's not always clear how.
Right, but he's saying it's totally possible, and he even breaks down the orgasm stage into pre-orgasm and orgasm.
Okay, for pre-orgasm, what's going on there?
Well, it's those moments right before she climaxes.
Gotcha, and then orgasm is the actual peak.
Exactly. And he talks about the physical manifestations like muscle contractions, increased breathing, and potentially female ejaculation.
And he really stresses the importance of maintaining stimulation throughout the entire orgasm.
Yeah, don't stop just because she starts coming.
Okay, good to know. And then finally, we have phase 4, reflection.
Right, which is all about the resolution stage.
So the body returning to its normal state.
Yeah, but he's saying it's not just about the physical, it's about the psychological too.
Oh, how so?
Well, he's saying that what happens right after sex can have a huge impact on future desire.
Interesting.
Like if a guy just rolls over and goes to sleep after he comes, it can make the woman feel neglected.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like she's just being used.
Exactly. So he emphasizes the importance of afterplay.
Oh, yeah, like cuddling and talking.
Exactly. It's about reinforcing that positive connection.
So basically, the experience doesn't end with the orgasm.
Nope. It's all about the follow-through.
Okay, so that's the blueprint. Now let's dive into the specific techniques he recommends for each phase. Starting with phase 1, seduction. He talks about creating anticipation outside the bedroom.
Yeah, like with suggestive texts or phone calls.
Right, keeping that spark alive throughout the day. Then he gets into creating attraction within the bedroom environment.
And he really focuses on eye contact.
Eye contact.
Yeah, he's got this whole technique called seductive eyes.
Tell me more.
Well, it's about keeping your eyelids about 75% open, tilting your head down, slightly minimizing blinking, and holding her gaze until she breaks it.
Wow. That's intense.
Yeah, it's all about creating that magnetic pull.
Okay, I'll have to practice that in the mirror. He also talks about setting the mood with lighting, music, and scents.
Yeah, he recommends dim lighting, sensual music, and using a specific scent that you only use during lovemaking.
Oh, so it becomes like a trigger.
Exactly like a Pavlovian response.
Okay, I like it. Then we move into phase 2, sensation stage 2, excitement. And this is where he introduces his 3-step formula for relaxation.
Yeah, getting her totally relaxed before things get heated.
Right, so what are the 3 steps?
Well, first you kind of tease her by bringing her into the bedroom and then taking her back out.
Okay.
Then you take a shower or bath together.
Oh, for relaxation and cleanliness.
Exactly. And then step 3 is the massage.
Okay, and he goes into a lot of detail about how to give a good massage.
Yeah, he's got tips on feeling for knots, maintaining contact, using a slow, rhythmic pace, encouraging her to breathe deeply.
So it's not just about randomly rubbing her back.
No, it's a whole art form.
And he breaks down the specific strokes like gliding, kneading, friction.
And then he's got this whole step-by-step guide on where and how to massage each part of her body.
Starting with the scalp.
Yeah. Then the earlobes, the neck, and shoulders, the back with some firm kneading in there.
Okay.
Then a little ass tease, a nice foot massage, the back of the legs, with light feathery strokes behind the knees. More pressure on the calves kneading upwards, then the buttocks with gentle strokes, and then some squeezing and knuckle kneading.
Okay.
Then the top of the chest using circular motions with your thumbs. The breasts with some stroking and teasing, saving the nipples for last.
Right.
Then the belly with gliding strokes up and down and then upwards towards the rib cage under the breasts. And finally, a long glide down the legs and back up, stopping just above her labia.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a full body experience.
It is. And then he gets into the labial massage.
Yeah, this is where things start to get a little more focused.
So what's the goal here?
Well, he says it's about finding and massaging these tiny tension spots on her labia.
Okay.
And he compares it to feeling for a small grain of rice under the skin.
Wow, very specific. And he gives a warning about using oil-based lubricants.
Yeah, because they can break down latex condoms.
Right, so if you're going to use condoms, you got to go with a water-based lube or polyurethane condoms.
Exactly. And then he lays out the steps for massaging the outer labia.
Using your thumbs and fingers.
Right, thumbs on the mons pubis, fingers moving downwards. Then he talks about indirect clitoral stimulation.
Oh, so like stimulating the clitoris through the labia.
Exactly. And then he finishes with the massage of the mons pubis itself.
Okay, and what's the intended outcome of all this labial massage?
Well, he says it should leave her feeling super aroused, relaxed, and ready for more direct genital touch.
Gotcha. All right, so now we're moving into phase 2, sensation stage 3, plateau, which leads into the orgasm phase.
Right, and this is where he introduces his 3 before me rule.
3. Before me. Okay, I'm intrigued.
So basically he's saying that the man should aim for the woman to have 3 distinct orgasms before he has his own.
Wow, 3.
Yeah, a clitoral orgasm, a G-spot orgasm, and a blended orgasm.
And why is that so important?
Well, for a few reasons. First of all, it shows that you're prioritizing her pleasure.
Oh.
It's not just about you getting off.
Right, it's about making sure she's satisfied first.
Exactly. And secondly, it actually prepares her physically and mentally for orgasm during intercourse.
Interesting.
And thirdly, he says, a woman who's already had an orgasm is way more likely to reciprocate enthusiastically.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah, and he's very clear that this is not just a suggestion, it's a rule.
Okay, so 3 orgasms before you even think about yourself.
That's the goal.
All right, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
So let's break down these 3 orgasms, starting with the clitoral orgasm. He really recommends oral sex for this one.
Yeah, he says it's the best tool for the job.
And he's got very specific instructions on how to do it properly.
Oh yeah, he's got the whole positioning down pat.
Tell me about it.
Okay, so she's lying on her back legs, bent and spread, and you're positioned in a straight line with your nose near her mons pubis.
Okay.
Your upper lip resting on the bone just above her clitoris, and your tongue resting on her vaginal entrance.
So you're basically right in there.
You're up close and personal.
And he mentions maintaining eye contact.
Yeah, which can be really intense.
Yeah, I can imagine. He also suggests using a pillow or a liberator to elevate her pelvis.
Right, which can make it more comfortable for both of you.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So once you're in position, what's the first move?
Well, he calls it first contact, and it involves a series of slow, gentle kisses on her labia.
Okay, so start with kissing.
Yeah, and he's very specific about the pattern.
Like what?
Like 1 second per kiss, covering the entire area, both outer and inner lips.
So it's a slow and deliberate exploration.
Exactly. And then comes the long lick.
The long lick. Okay.
I'm listening.
So you start at the frenulum, which is that little bit of skin below the clitoris.
Oh. And you lick very slowly upwards past her vaginal opening and inner lips, applying light pressure over the clitoris.
So you're basically tracing the entire length of her clitoris with your tongue.
Exactly. And you're feeling for the shaft underneath the hood.
Okay.
And then you slowly lick downwards with your tongue resting on her entire vulva.
So it's like a long, sensual stroke.
Yeah. And he emphasizes the slowness, like he says, imagine a snail's pace.
A snail's pace. Okay, so no rushing.
Nope, take your time.
Got it. Then he talks about establishing a rhythm.
Right, and he's got 3 different licking patterns.
Oh. Okay, hit me with them.
So pattern 1 is the lick-rest cycle.
Lick rest.
Yeah, so you lick upwards and downwards for 5 seconds, and then you rest for 5 seconds.
Okay.
And you repeat that about 20 times.
Gotcha.
Then pattern 2 is 5 halfway licks, followed by 1 full lick.
So the halfway licks don't go over the clitoris.
Exactly, it's like teasing.
I see.
And you do that whole cycle about 20 times too.
Okay.
And then pattern 3 is random halfway and full licks.
So just mixing it up.
Yeah, keeping her guessing.
Okay, I like it. And then he introduces this technique called the secret twitch method.
Ooh, yes, this one's interesting.
Tell me about it.
So basically, you use your fingers inside her vagina to feel for her contraction.
Contractions.
Yeah, like when you're stimulating her clitoris, her vagina will contract involuntarily.
Oh, I see.
And he says you can use your fingers as a thermometer to find the optimal location, pressure, and speed for making her come.
Wow, so you're like fine-tuning your technique based on her body's response.
Exactly. It's all about paying attention to the feedback.
So how does it work practically?
Well, you lube up your fingers and insert 2 or 3 of them, about 2 to 3 inches into her vagina.
Okay.
Palms upwards. And you locate her G-spot, but don't stimulate it yet.
Gotcha.
And then as you're licking her clitoris, you feel for those vaginal squeezes.
So you're using both your tongue and your fingers.
Exactly. And you're trying to find the spot where her contractions are the strongest. And once you find that spot, you vary your tongue pressure and speed to maximize those contractions.
This is like a little experiment.
Yeah, you're finding her sweet spot.
And once you find it,
you maintain that steady stimulation until she comes.
and he says you can tell she's getting close because the contractions will get harder and longer.
Exactly. And you don't stop until she's completely finished.
Okay, so that's clitoral orgasm number 1 down.
1 down, 2 to go.
All right, so on to orgasm, hashtag G-spot orgasms.
Right. And for this one, your fingers are going to stay inside her vagina on her G-spot.
Okay.
And you start with slow, light strokes.
Okay.
And gradually increase the speed and pressure.
Gotcha.
He also suggests changing positions for this one.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, he recommends having her raise her legs towards her chest and hold her thighs.
Okay.
And you can either be upright on one knee or lying beside her.
So you've got options.
Exactly. Whatever feels comfortable for both of you.
And then he outlines 4 different G-spot stimulation techniques.
Right. And he says to aim for about 100 strokes of each technique.
100 strokes.
Wow. Yeah, and he uses this analogy of a roller coaster.
Roller coaster.
Yeah, you alternate between fast and slow speeds and light and firm pressure.
Oh, so it's about building anticipation and then giving her a break?
Exactly.
Okay, so what are the 4 techniques?
All right, so first there's the forward and backward stroke.
Which is just rubbing the G-spot back and forth.
Yeah, with the pad of your finger or fingers.
Okay.
Then there's circles, which is making small light circles on her G-spot.
Circles, okay.
Then there's the come hither stroke.
Come hither.
Yeah, which is like making a beckoning motion with your fingers rubbing her G-spot, but being careful not to scratch.
Okay, so it's a gentle come hither.
Exactly. And then finally there's tapping.
Tapping.
Yeah, which is adding a quick up and down motion to the come hither stroke.
So you're basically tapping on her G-spot.
Yeah, and he says this can even make her body bounce a little.
Oh, wow.
And you can use your free hand above her pubic bone to control the bounce.
Okay, so you're like a human vibrator. And if she doesn't orgasm from these techniques?
Then you go back to slow strokes and rebuild the intensity.
Okay, so you just got to keep going until she gets there.
Exactly. Persistence is key.
Got it. So that's G-spot orgasm number 2.
2 down, 1 to go.
And the final orgasm is the blended orgasm.
Right, which is combining clitoral and G-spot stimulation.
So you're using both your tongue and your fingers.
Exactly, and he warns that this can get tiring, so you might need to switch arms.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So how do you do it?
Well, you start with the lick-rest cycle on her clitoris for about 5 to 10 repetitions.
Okay.
Then you find her hot spot on the clitoris again, using the secret twitch method.
While your fingers are on her G-spot.
You gotta be coordinated for this one.
Definitely. And then you start stimulating her G-spot while you continue licking her clitoris.
And you can use any of the 4 G-spot techniques.
Okay, so it's like a free-for-all.
Pretty much. And the goal is to create a super intense blended orgasm.
Sounds amazing.
Hmm.
And after these 3 orgasms?
Then you can do whatever you want.
Like what?
More foreplay she can please. You can have intercourse. You can just cuddle whatever feels good.
Okay, so it's like the possibilities are endless.
Exactly.
All right, so we've covered the 3 orgasms. Now he gets into more detail about the pre-orgasm and orgasm experiences in phase 3. Surrender more on orgasms.
Right. He's got some good tips for recognizing when she's getting close.
Like what?
Well, she might start breathing more deeply, or sweating, or her vaginal contractions might get more frequent.
Okay, so those are signs that she's nearing orgasm.
Exactly. And he gives some important advice on how to respond.
Like what?
Well, first of all, he says don't change anything.
Don't change anything.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Don't switch techniques or pressure or anything.
Okay, so consistency is key.
Exactly. And he also says don't let her change positions.
Even if she wants to.
Yeah, because it can disrupt the flow.
Gotcha.
And he talks about the importance of her mindset.
Like letting go.
Exactly. And he specifically addresses the fear some women have of peeing during G-spot stimulation.
Oh yeah, that's a common concern.
Yeah, he reassures them that it's not pee, it's a different fluid.
Okay, so it's important to communicate that to her.
Yeah, make her feel comfortable.
And finally, he says, make sure she's breathing.
Yeah, sometimes people hold their breath when they're about to come.
So you got to remind her to breathe.
Exactly.
Then he gives his main instruction for the orgasm itself.
Which is keep doing what you're doing until her contractions stop completely.
So don't stop prematurely.
Nope, write it out.
Okay, good advice. He also gives some tips on how to tell if she's faking it.
Oh yeah, because that happens.
It does. So what are the signs?
Well, he says her vocalizations might be too over the top.
Like screaming too much?
Yeah, or her moans might sound too clear and not shaky enough.
Okay.
And he says to pay attention to her contractions.
Like how strong they are. Expert.